Witches, wizards, and muggles. Such an honour it is to welcome you to Rennervate, a Harry Potter TCG revival podcast with your host, Doug, Mona, and Emilio.
Okay, well, thanks, Dobby. It's the third time we meet, so maybe someday you won't be scared of me. And hi, everyone. Welcome to Rennervate. There you go. I'm Emilio, one of your hosts, and I'm here with...
Mona Morsi is another host.
And Doug Coleman. So happy to be back, you guys. I love talking with you guys about the Harry Potter trading card game. How's everyone doing?
Super good. Very, very excited.
I'm here.
Yeah, I know how it goes, Amelia.
But excited to film. Definitely very excited to record, but I'm definitely not in the best of places. Yeah,
it's okay. Well, hopefully this can cheer you up. And that's the thing. I feel like last episode we were talking about the base set of cards. One cool idea Emilio had off air was to maybe, before we dive into the Quidditch Cup, which is what this episode's all about, we should maybe go over our top 5 cards of the base set. Does anybody want to start with that? I know I have mine picked out.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, then my top 5, I feel like they might be a little bit basic, but Platform 9 3/4. I love that card. It sucks that you have to discard a lesson, but you do get more actions, and actions are so priceless in this game. Stupefy for the artwork and the ability to damage your opponent with 5 damage. That's great. Steel Claw in order to redistribute damage from all your creatures. I feel like we might have some overlap with our favorites. Unicorn and Elixir of Life. Again, Unicorn with more actions, and Elixir of Life, an incredible healing spell. It should be an item, like Emilio has pointed out. But yeah, it stinks losing 2 potions lessons, but it's worth it to heal 16.
Huh.
Very true. Yeah.
That's a very good list for sure.
Thank you.
That is.
I think
really
honorable mentions would be Malevolent Mixture and Draught of Living Death. Those are 2 potions, ones that do some serious damage to either your opponent or a creature. But again, you have to discard lessons. But yeah, thought I'd give them the honorable mentions spot.
Yeah, definitely. No, those are really good. I have like this weird thing where like I just cannot be a fan of these cards that like make you discard lessons. I think it's just because like I don't know, I just have like PTSD, I think, from like playing a game and then like not having any lessons, and then I'm like, can we just like not play, or how about I just give you my deck, because apparently I don't deserve this. Like I don't even know what to do. So no, those are good cards though. For me, I would say for sure Severus Snape is definitely like my top, I would say like my top 10 of all the cards, but definitely for this base set, it's definitely in there. And then Hannah Abbott is another one that for playability is a really good card. So for her, you know, once per game, you may trade 2 cards in your hand for 2 non-healing cards in your discard pile. So that's another one that I really like. For art, I love Diagon Alley. There's just something about the art in Diagon Alley, the adventure, that I absolutely dig. So I don't think I've played the adventure too much, like just the adventure on its own, but for the art, I love it. So those are my top 3.
Awesome. Those are great.
Nice.
How about you, Emilio?
Well, I'm trying to remember because I remember I had a video on this, but off the top of my head, I think I'll go first to bottom. First is Unicorn. I love Unicorn. The purple is my favorite color, and just to see it in the card, how it's laid out as a part of the forest, just beautiful art, and also not a bad card. Then second, I would say Elixir of Life as well. I love the art. It's just, I love treasure chest and anything that could be super extra. So I love the huge treasure chest and just like this little bottle in the middle. And the healing is not bad. Then third place, I would have to say Hermione. I love that the depiction of the hair and also the effect, of course, that she can study more and get the lessons out. But the art of the hair as it's described in the book, I really into that. And then for my last 2 places, I would have to say that I would say in terms of, just to keep going in terms of the art, I would have to say the the draw of the living death as well,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
it's just like I find it more like dark than anything that you have this potion that kills
Students.
so powerful, and the students are falling asleep.
Yeah.
Big air quotes for those that are
Yeah,
are
that's
listening.
dark.
Very.
So
Yeah.
that's a card that really sort of like creeped me out a little bit. And yeah, I'll leave it there. I think those are the top four, and maybe Flitwick at the end, just because he
Oh,
looks
yeah.
like something out of Kill Bill movie, and
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Definitely.
Very
Awesome.
cool.
Well, I'm glad we could cover that and like tie in the previous episode. Listener, if you haven't checked that out, please do. But tonight, like I said, we're focusing on the Quidditch Cup. So this is the first time we were introduced the Quidditch lesson type, and there's a whole bunch of cards we're going to be discussing, 80 in total. So let's get this one started. We're going to go person by person, card by card. So I guess I could start this one off. Our first card tonight is Bludger. And it reads, before each of your turns, Bludger does 3 damage to your opponent if a match is in play. And then in parentheses, if there isn't a match in play, Bludger does no damage. So yes, contingent on a match being in play, but when it is, boy, that does come in handy. And that's the thing about Quidditch as a lesson type. It's just so damage oriented. I've fallen in love with it. I know like that charms is typically the one you think of when you think of like dealing damage, but I think Quidditch has almost overcome even charms when it comes to how much damage can be done when you're like just like comboing cards after another. There's going to be some interesting ones we cover later on. But have any of you used Bludger in your decks?
Yeah, Quidditch is extremely brutal, and you find these items that just do extra damage, or even some of the characters, and we'll get down to the one character in particular that does just an incredible amount of damage. But yeah, I have used Bludger, and it's sort of difficult to take it out while you have a match in play, especially for those that play the next card that we'll talk about. But yeah, because sometimes matches don't stay in play for too long, right? So it's
Absolutely.
really, you have to make sure that you do that you put it out right on time, or you put it out in hopes that your opponent's match might stay in play for longer. But yeah, I have used Bludger. It's brutal, but hey, that's the name of the game. It's Quidditch.
Exactly.
So,
It's very
yeah.
flavorful to Quidditch.
Yep.
How about your thoughts on it, Emilio?
I hate Quidditch cards. They're very powerful, but I just don't see the flavor or the interest from my part. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So I've never used it.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah,
But the art is amazing. I like the art of the Bludger. You can see some detail that we normally do not see in the movies. It has like some swirls of wind or something. It's just like, I think, representing like this storm. And I really like that representation, since it's just a crazy thing that follows and goes, makes you a boo-boo.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure.
In
Well,
scientific terms.
Mona alluded to the next card, and
Yeah,
I
she
you
should
want to
take
take
it.
that one over?
Yeah, so the next card is Catch the Snitch, and it reads, you win the current match, you get the prize.
Oof, complicated.
Yeah, so it is very complicated, it truly is, but it's one of those, it's like some people will have a Quidditch deck that is match heavy, and they have Catch the Snitch. Max amount of cards that you can have in each deck for spells and stuff like that is 4, and so they always max out at that 4 for Catch the Snitch, because you'll take a match and then you'll play Catch the Snitch right after, and you'll win whatever that is. Some of them are even as brutal as doing 15 damage to your opponent. And so
Yes.
it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, and that's what I mean by, yes, you have a match in play, but Bludger doesn't do a whole lot for you if you play Catch the Snitch right away, because you're essentially putting a card down just to take it away, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it costs 7 Quidditch power. So it obviously, with such a powerful card, you need to have some lessons in play to be able to do that. And each match, we should say, only costs 1 Quidditch power to begin with. So like right off the bat, you could start playing matches if you have them in your hand. But yeah, Catch the Snitch, the combo of match, then Catch the Snitch is pretty brutal to anybody you're facing.
Yeah, and you can normally mitigate the cost by doing a Dumbledore Quidditch deck, because that's an easy way to get it down to 5, and 5 is a pretty quick turnaround.
Or
Totally.
playing or by playing Quidditch Pitch, which is in a different set, of course, but yeah, Quidditch Pitch, I think it does the same as like Wand Shop would do, and it allows you to have however many Quidditch lessons you have in play count as 2.
Well, actually, the reason I know this. I just played a Quidditch deck against my wife last night, and I actually used a
no.
Quidditch pitch, and it's more or less like Dumbledore in the sense that any Quidditch power costs 2 less. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yep.
But
So,
the good
that's
thing
a very
about
powerful card.
Dumbledore is that you can obviously use it as a starter character and it won't be discarded, right? Locations have their,
Can
Yeah.
be replaced. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, in that point, then Catch the Snitch would be 5 instead of 7. Then,
hmm
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So still better, but
Definitely. But I guess that brings us to card number 3. You want to take this one, Emilio?
Yeah, so we have Charms Exam. This spell costs 7, and your opponent discards their hand, and then they draw any number of cards. So, and they may draw, so they don't have to, right? This
Talk
is a
about
very sort of tricky card, right? Because depending on what you're running in your deck, it could basically invite your opponent to be closer to dying. And if you have something like the Tentacular Juice, then they might be in trouble, right? If they draw too many cards and then they have to draw double the cards. And Poisonous Tentacular Juice is a card from Chamber of Secrets, right?
yep.
Right.
And it just makes your opponent draw double of their hand size. So, that adds up and you can't protect. It's same with this spells. It's a damage that cannot be protected because it's drawing cards. Yeah.
Mhm.
right. Yeah, talk about PTSD. I hate this card. It's been used against me so many times when I have a great hand and I'm like, I don't want to discard them.
Yep.
But the ability to actually draw any number of cards, like you said, it's a May condition. That is fantastic. It's like unlike Obliviate, which we covered in the base set. That is just discard your hand and you're screwed.
Mhm.
And the only cards you get is on your draw on the next turn.
But
So
this
at
costs
least-
7, so
Yeah.
Yep.
So this one gives your opponent that option.
Yeah, definitely. I do like this card. But I remember when I first started playing the game and I played against somebody who was a novice like myself, and like I played the card and then she just picked up like almost her whole deck. Just like, okay, well, I'll just have all the cards then, and then
Don't do that.
yeah, exactly. But of course
Amazing.
you have to say, like, I think before you do, like, you have to say, okay, I'll just draw like 5 cards and you choose 5, instead of like keep going.
Right.
But yeah, it really is, like you guys pointed out, it really depends. It can either hinder you or help you depending on how many cards you choose. So good
Totally.
card. Yeah.
That leads us to our first creature of the Quidditch Cup, which is Fluffy. It reads Dog. He's a unique creature, and to play this card, you discard 2 of your Care of Magical Creatures lessons from play. The damage each turn is 12, and the health is 21. And I swear to God, I don't know too many creatures that have that kind of health. Like, is that the highest health count on any creature card in this game? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it is. I know that like Giant Squid is 8, and there's a few that are up there, but I mean, yeah, that's really high. Again, when I first started playing the game, that was one of the few cards that I would have that allowed that I would play that would discard lessons, and then I realized I hated that, and that was one of the ones I was like, just forget it, because of how expensive it is too. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have at least 10 lessons, and I'm assuming you can kind of get rid of 2 at least to play that, but
Sure.
you're already so far into the game too at the same time, because of how expensive it is, that it's like, yes, 12 damage is probably a game, it's an ender for sure, but
Yeah.
it's brutal.
Definitely. And I think in future sets we're going to cover, I don't think it's in this one, but there's certain locations too, like Potions Dungeon and Hagrid's House, where any potions lesson, or in Hagrid's House instance, any creature lessons that gets discarded come back to your hand. So it's at least an easier pill to swallow if you
Exactly.
have one of those locations in play.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I don't even know if I own a copy of Fluffy. If I did, I would definitely try to put it in a creature deck, but man, I would feel bad for my opponent, because doing 21 damage to a single creature just seems daunting over the course of how many actions would that take? Because like, unless it's a Draw of Living Death or like one of those high numbered cards where you could do like 10 damage at a time, or 12, I think is actually for Draw of Living Death, and Malevolent Mixture is 10. Like, you're still only doing like half of the health of this guy. It's super brutal card, but the artwork's phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's like one of those cards that can it looks brutal, but then like there's spells that return creatures to your hand, right?
Exactly.
So
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
that's the danger of playing creatures like this for sure.
Or
That makes sense.
even, I mean, even if you had like a Charms or Transfiguration deck and you had Dobby's Disappearance or Hover Charm, that just you take any card, and return it. So that's kind of one of the things, like if you were to play this card, which is also why it's kind of it could help you or it wouldn't, because let's say you play this card, you discard 2 of your lessons, now you've got 8 lessons, but you got Fluffy in play, and then I played a Dobby's Disappearance. Well, you can't
Right.
play Fluffy again, which has happened, and so those are the kind of things that you want to look out for, but you'll never know, obviously, because you got to play it first. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
Yep.
Well, I guess that brings us to our next card. It's our first characters of this one.
Yes.
I
Okay,
think
that's
this is
me.
Mona. Yep.
Yeah, so we
Mhm.
got Fred and George Weasley. It's a character, and it says you may use 1 action instead of 2 to put an adventure card from your hand into play, even if you already have 1 in play. If you already have 1 in play, discard the old one. Nobody gets the reward.
Evil.
I know it is so evil, and I do have an adventure deck that's
Of
with
course.
Fred and George Weasley. Is this why you're not playing with me? By the way, because I've
Oh,
talked
no,
to
I
both.
just-
and
I
he's
just keep
like-
rescheduling with you because
he's
there's
like,
things that come up,
"Oh." No, I know.
I
Yeah.
definitely want to play with you
No, yeah, sure.
and suffer. I mean, have fun.
No, I promise. We won't. It won't be too bad. But no, I really do. I do like this one, but it is so brutal because you could play an adventure, and then right when your opponent is like this close to solving it, you can just replace it with another adventure, and they got to start from scratch. And that's really the brutality when it comes to Fred and George. If you play something like Caught by Snape, right? And they got like they're stuck, right? And they're like, okay, well, here's 1 lesson, and then here's 2, and then you're like, you know what, I'll take it, and then I'll play something else, and they got to start. It's terrible.
We
Yeah.
apologize. We don't all back up the opinions that are, spouted by Mona right now. But it's really good to, hear different opinions on how to play the game or torment.
I know. I am
humans.
the Mon Monster. The
You are,
savage.
but that's a good thing. I'm the same
Yeah.
way. I'm the one that appreciates Quidditch. I feel like I'm a monster for that. Like, I don't know.
You are.
I like doing damage and trying to win. That's the name of the game, isn't it?
Yeah.
But all
And
right.
that's, yeah.
You go ahead, Emilio.
Yeah, we should we move on to the next one?
Sure.
Go.
Cool. And just know, we make fun of all these play styles, but the important thing is that you all play what you like and that
Yes.
you communicate with your opponents that, that there's a level there that you're both having fun and playing strategies and synergies and whatnot, right? So, well, we, of course,
Exactly.
like to joke around that Mona's a monster. She's not that bad. But anyways, let's go to the next card, which is Gaze into the Mirror. I don't know. It's a horrible card after a horrible card. So this is an adventure.
Yeah.
You have Harry looking in the mirror with his mom and dad that have had a lot of art styles and depiction within the movies and the books and the cards.
Yeah.
But the effect is that basically your opponent, you are preventing all the spell damage from your opponent. And to solve it, if they want to solve this sort of illusion, I imagine that they're attacking the mirror image and not yourself, so that there's
There you
preventing
go.
the damage.
Yeah.
That's sort
Yeah.
of the logic that I see to it.
Yeah.
Your opponent chooses 5 cards in their spell cards in their hands and discards them. And then, as a reward, a huge reward for discarding 5 cards, they get 1 more action for discarding 5 cards. So this is a great card against spellburn decks.
Right.
The only thing is that as the game has evolved, there's strategies, as Mona has pointed out in the past, and we've talked about that. It's about making your opponent draw cards, and it doesn't count as damage, so this card wouldn't protect you. But in the early days, this was a great card, as most spells would just damage you, right? And not everyone was playing Charms Exam.
Yeah, and the prospect of discarding 5 spells is not fun because that's probably what you're using against your opponent. So yeah, that's a tricky adventure for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it counts for anything, Harry's mom in this is pretty hot. So
Yeah, I agree with that.
yeah, so I mean, if
And that does
anybody
look like an
hates
older Harry.
yeah, if anybody hates the card but just likes the art, there we go.
The art is great. I love the mirror. It's like the drag queen mirror. It has all this
That's
like,
exactly
stuff around it, very extra. I love it. I will have to
Very
have
extra.
that mirror.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to our next card, which is Gold Cauldron. God, this has to be one of my
nice.
favorites in this set. Just the artwork alone, so gorgeous. Like this cauldron
It is
has like
beautiful.
claws on it and little dragons, or I'm not exactly sure, but it's very cool to look at. But it
Definitely.
reads, well, it's an item, obviously a cauldron, and it says to play this card, return 2 of your potion lessons from play to your hand. So already you're not discarding them, so that's nice. It's as if that lesson potions dungeon was in play, and it provides 5 potion lessons. So yeah, you put 2 back in your hand, it provides 5. You could probably play those 2 on your next turn, and you'd really be sitting pretty with potion lessons. But yeah, really quick way to build up your lesson count, but it is a cost of 9. So that's the problem with this cauldron. I put it in many of my potions decks, but I don't find myself playing it very often because a lot of the potion cards make you discard. So I'm never really at 9 typically.
Yeah, that's true. They do it kind of sets you up, I guess, for failure. You know, for those that have been listening, you know, I don't play these kind of cards. So, so it's interesting to kind of see it from that perspective because it is so expensive and you're obviously going to have it in a potions deck. And so by using potions cards, they most of the time say, hey, either return this or discard that at many lessons. And so, yeah, to get to 9 and still be able to use that, it's almost like, okay, so you have 9 and then you're going to have 7 just and then now you're going to have 12 lessons. And so it's like, what are you doing? Like,
exactly. Now you have 2 more in your
playing?
hand as well. And that's one unique thing I want to point out about cauldrons. It's not like wands where a wand will replace the other wand. I think the idea with most potion decks is you want to utilize some of the lower cost cauldrons to really boost your lesson or power count, essentially. And that way you can just stack cauldrons. Unlike wands, you can only have 1 in play.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. No, for sure. That makes sense. But you still need to have a certain amount of lessons because you have to discard them to have
exactly. Yes.
Well, but you could have a ramp with Flitwick, for example, right? Like if you wanted for whatever reason to have access to a lot of cauldrons, and then you can have a professor to provide you the actual power of your deck. So there's ways to use this, but definitely not that common. It was very common back in the days to use this card, actually, but not now.
Yeah.
Oh, and also it's an item. Who would have thought that a gold cauldron is not a spell?
Yes.
It's amazing.
It's great.
True that.
They hit that one on the head. But I think this next card is Mona's.
All right. So it is Golden Snitch. At the end of your opponent's turn, you win the game unless your opponent has at least 10 more cards in his or her deck than you do. If he or she does, your opponent wins the game instead. This is such... It's a cool card. It's a silly card. It's just kind of a confusing. It's like, wait, okay, so okay, how many do you have? It's like one of those, you know?
Did Emilio design this card? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I think this is the only Quidditch card I would ever run. Yeah, I think this is great. It's like I play that, I know that I'm going to lose. That would be amazing.
He loves it, yeah. 100%.
That's great. I love that. But yeah, it's just so strange. It's such a gamble. Like, I don't know. I would never play this, but you would think it would be like almost like a catch the snitch where it's just like a win condition, but instead it's just like all depending. It's interesting.
It is really interesting, but great art.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
I think that brings us to our next adventure with Emilio.
Oh my God, I just keep getting these cards that I really, really don't like. So now we're going to talk about Hagrid Needs Help, an adventure that has a great artwork for Hagrid, unlike Through the Arc, which is horrifying. Anyways, but back to the Hagrid Needs Help. The effect is that your opponent gets 1 less action each of their turns. That's pretty sad.
Yeah, that does suck.
And then, of course, there's always a solution to all problems. And the solution here is that your opponent takes 8 damage. And then they get to draw 3 cards. So it's a may, so they can decide not to do it, or they can decide to actually take 11 damage if they draw the 3 cards in total, right? From 8 and 3. So this is a crazy card. It makes me really upset even to read about it. And I can see Mona smiling and just thinking of how, like, to just put 4 of them when we play.
Oh,
my
But
gosh, I
it's
know.
okay, you know.
I've
With the
never-
Fred and George Weasley, right
Yeah.
back
Oh,
to
jeez.
back.
Who
Good
needs
point.
friends when you have adventures?
Well,
Exactly. No.
this card I've never played, but now that I'm revisiting it, it makes me want to, especially knowing that I've said on our previous episode that I'm the kind of player that likes to play the very high level cards that I need to build up my lesson count. So to play this early in a game, to restrict them, and the only way that's solved is if they take 8 damage. What if I'm just spending both of my actions just laying down lessons and I'm not even doing that 8 damage to them and just basically using it as a setup? Be like, let me get my lesson count and then I'll start damaging them, and that whole time they can only do one thing per turn. Like, that's a crazy adventure.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
though. So you can make something less evil. We get it.
Yeah, no, you're right. I've actually had people play this against me, like right at like the very first thing, you know, and
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
oh yeah. So then I'm like, it does suck, of course, because you know what are we trying to do at the beginning of the game? We're trying to get our lessons out, right? And
Yep.
so or these adventures, I guess, if you don't have any lessons to put. And so it does suck because of course, as my life would have it, the 8 damage I take, that's where like all of my lessons are.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so I'm like, oh, perfect, this is great, you know,
Oh,
and so
brutal.
it just, yeah, it definitely makes them happy. So
And Mona
Definitely.
pointed out something very important for our listeners that are just getting into the game. And that's one of the complexities of the simplicity of Harry Potter. When you're getting decked out, you're actually losing resources, and your ratio of lessons and spells gets thrown out the window. So it's really dicey. This game is really dicey for sure. I'm
Yeah.
sorry that happens to you, Mona. I'm sure that
Yeah.
if you played more fair cards, maybe the karma would be, nicer to you.
it is 100% my karma. For sure.
There we go.
Yeah,
That's so
I mean, I'm
funny.
gonna own that 100%.
That's hilarious. You guys are funny. All right. Well, that brings us to our 10th card of this set, and it is Halloween Feast. Now,
Nice.
talk about incredible artwork. This
Love
one
the
One
art.
of
in
my
the Feast.
favorites.
is
Love
insane.
it.
And it's a holographic or foil, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. It's a spell card. Put up the 4 creature cards from your discard pile into your hand. Good God, this makes me want to make a Charms creature deck because that is
Yeah.
very handy.
Right. No, it is. It absolutely is. It's a really good card. Very, very good art. I mean, I have, like you said, like a Charms creature deck is actually a really cool and unique combination anyway. I
Right.
mean, you see a lot of like creature transfiguration, right? And so having cards like this sort of allows you to become more creative. It sort of forces you to become more creative with the decks that you build. You know, instead
Totally.
of just saying like, oh, well, let's have 100% a Quidditch deck, or, you know, whatever the case is. This one's telling you, hey, add creatures to this deck.
Exactly.
So I do love that because it kind of forces the creativity and the imagination, you know, so.
Definitely. If you're
And-
smart, you'd probably start as Flitwick, so you get that Charms
Yeah.
ability right off the bat, and then go heavy on the creatures.
That's it.
And not only that, like just the flavor of Halloween, the night of the eve of the dead, before the eve
Mhm.
of the day of the saints and the dead and all those things, to be able to get things from your graveyard, especially creatures, that's a
Ah,
pretty cool, take on
Mhm.
Halloween for sure.
totally. I love that.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to Harry the Seeker.
Yes.
And it's once during each of your turns when you use an action to play a Quidditch lesson card, you may also draw a card. So this is a really good starting character for a Quidditch deck. If you want to have that sort of ability to draw, right? Because some people, they kind of see it as hindering them, or like Emilio had pointed out before, you know, you're almost like taking damage in a way, but it could also be a card that you need. And so if that's, now I haven't seen Harry the Seeker played as a starting character, but in a Quidditch deck I have seen it. So good card.
I like it how it's very similar to the other Harry Potter card we had in the base set, where it's like if you use an action to draw one card, you can draw an extra card. So it's very Harry Potter is just about building
Getting
up your
hurt.
resources.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
getting hurt. Good point. You're absolutely right. All right. Well, that takes us to
To
what
getting
I thought
hurt
would be a
again.
location, but it's an item. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, and it's talking about Harry Potter getting hurt, we have Harry Potter laying on a hospital bed. So it's a
Yes.
hospital bed, it's an item, and you have Harry sort of like looks like is waking up from a mushroom trip, and he has like
Yeah.
candies by his like bedside table, and it reads that you may use an action to search your deck and take a healing card and put it into your hand, and then you shuffle your deck, and this item stays in play, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a tutor. It's specifically a tutor for healing items or just healing cards. Yeah, just healing cards.
Yep.
But it costs 9, so it's a little costly. But if you're into healing, maybe you run this card. I'm not that big into healing, to be very honest.
I like to pair this with Elixir of Life just so I can get access to it, because there's so many times where it's like I know it's in there and I'm just not drawing it. To have an item that you could just go get it is fantastic. And most healing cards, actually all healing cards, explicitly say heal all non-healing cards because they don't want to have it be like a forever infinite loop of healing. So yeah, this way you can just actually get the one you're looking for.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I really like Madame Pomfrey for healing.
Oh yeah.
But the problem is, so like you would use Madame Pomfrey and then discard it. And so if this card read, search your discard pile, right, then you could essentially use Madame Pomfrey again. That would be awesome. But yeah, even just being able to get her and ensure that it's not discarded is also a good thing. But like Emilio pointed out, it is pretty expensive. So, but a good card nonetheless.
Yeah, it's super upsetting when you see some healing card end up in your discard pile. It's like, I don't think I'll ever get that back. Damn it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that leads us to our next character, and it is Madame Rolanda Hooch. She's a witch, unique character, and once per game, you may search your deck. When you do, you may take a broom card from your deck, show it to your opponent, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. And she provides 1 Quidditch lesson power. So that's a phenomenal card. She's my starting witch every time I have a Quidditch-oriented deck. And yeah, I always try to put in a handy broom, and one of the first things I do when I start is do that. But then again, someone could always throw a charms exam at me and I lose my broom that I already had searched my deck for. But yeah, all in all, love Rolanda Hooch. I use her so much.
Yeah, I totally love it too, and I'm pretty sure I've seen this girl at like a bar a couple of times. Like, I'm almost certain I've seen her before. But love the art. She is really good. When I first started building Quidditch decks, I did use her just because I thought like, oh well, this is like standard, obviously. But I started to actually use different starting characters. But she is a good card nonetheless. Good.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely a good card, and you can, obviously search out one of the brooms, and the comet that protects you 1 damage is pretty good choice if you're early game play.
Oh yeah, starting as her, the first thing you could do is play a match. You don't even have to have a lesson in play.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's true. Good point. Okay, so that leads us to our next one, Marcus Flint. He's a character, Slytherin. Once per game, you may make your opponent choose 3 cards in his or her hand and discard them. If there are fewer than 3 cards in your opponent's hand, he or she discards them all. So yeah,
typical Slytherin.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I've seen this in a handful of decks, from charms to potions to whatever. I have Marcus Flint in a couple of my decks, one of them being Quidditch. However, whenever I have him in my hand, it's like I never have a good opportunity or good window to use 2 actions in order just to play him.
Right.
So, especially it's just a once per game kind of thing. And so I do have him, but it's a good card, but for me, it hasn't worked out a whole lot, but.
Yeah, I don't use it too much myself, but in theory, it seems like it would be good to screw over your opponent and make them discard 3 cards. I know there's certain cards where I think it's ouch, which we'll get to later. You do damage, and then your opponent has to discard 1 card from their hand. Every time I use that against my wife, she's always like, I don't want to get rid of anything, let alone 3. So yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Handy character.
Yep. All right, next.
Yeah, it's just to add to that, it's just the once per game thing. You can get over it, right? Just by bouncing the character back to your hand. So if it's not your starting character, you can sort of like annoy your opponent a lot. I recently saw a meme with where they put a picture of the actor that plays Marcus Flint in the movies. In the movies, he had like buck teeth and was really young and sort of going through things and changes and hormones. And now he's an adult and he looks hot. So it's a really stark comparison than me.
Yeah.
That happened to most of the actors and actresses in that movie franchise.
That's what
Yeah.
money does. Money
Yep.
changes you.
Yeah.
Look at
And-
Neville. Good God.
And
Anyway.
talking about
point.
talking about big changes, we have Neville Longbottom as our next character. And basically, Gryffindor unique character is a wizard, of course. You have Neville thinking of how he's gonna be in pain next with a very sort of
Yeah, that art
confused
is
and
hilarious.
aching face, and Trevor is now green and over his shoulder. And then basically the effect is that you can prevent all but the first 8 damage done to you each turn. So if you're Neville, you get to suffer for longer, basically. So it's perfect flavor for the character. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I will have to know that I'm playing against someone that's extremely brutal that's going to do more than 8 damage each turn.
Right.
And as we talked about, a lot of the combos that do this kind of damage are normally by drawing cards. So Neville will not protect you from that.
Yeah, this is a good card to use if you have somebody who has a creature deck against you. And of course it's difficult to find out what that person's deck is, right? I mean, that's why they say the best out of 3, I guess. But I have a friend of mine who every single one of their decks starts with Neville, and I pretty much just figured out it's because they're afraid to take damage. It's almost like they have not understood that that's just a part of the game. You're just going to take damage. And so this actually it pans out pretty well against Fluffy that we mentioned earlier.
Definitely.
Yeah, but still, I mean that's a lot of damage either way. So
Totally.
Wow. That was really deep all of a sudden, a deep conversation about not getting hurt and not being afraid.
Well, it's interesting
Thank
that
you,
it's
Mona.
you're welcome. I mean, it really is I was psychoanalyzing this person for a minute. I was like, you play it safe, don't you?
Yes.
They're like, yeah. I was like, I gotcha. It was funny.
There you go.
Yeah. All
Well,
right.
and I
go ahead.
mentioned Rolando's Hooch's ability is to get brooms. Our first broom of this Quidditch Cup is Nimbus 2000, the best one so far, at least.
Yep.
It reads, whenever one of your items or spell cards that needs Quidditch power does damage, it does 2 more damage. If you play this card and you already have a broom in play, discard the old one. So it's like Wands, where you can only have 1 broom in play, but gosh, and it also provides a Quidditch lesson power. But man, that's the thing with Quidditch. It's all about just stacking damage. And yeah, if you can have a broom in play, you have bludger in play and a match in play, it just starts adding up. So yeah, I think it makes sense that Neville's a part of this this set particularly.
Yeah,
that makes
exactly.
sense. Actually, I didn't think about that.
Mm-hmm.
He also got his Remember stolen, and people were flying on brooms and stuff. So I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you had a Quidditch and creature deck, I mean, that would be bad.
Yes, overpowered perhaps.
For sure.
But yes,
I
love
wouldn't do
card.
that, Emilio.
That's where I draw the line.
Yeah. All right, so next card is going to be a spell, a Transfiguration Spell, No Time to Play.
Triggered.
And, and it reads, discard all matches and items that need Quidditch power from play, even your own. If a match is discarded, no one gets the prize. If a match is discarded, no one gets the prize. So this one is really sort of interesting. Again, when it comes to matches, for me personally, I'll play a match and I'm one of those that will play catch the snitch. Not always, but almost always I'll play catch the snitch. And so I don't think I would have a match and play long enough for you to play this card,
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's just
that makes sense, but it could potentially get rid of your brooms, your bludgers.
Yeah, for items. Yep.
Yeah, I hate this card. I'm the Quidditch guy. Of course, I'm gonna hate this card. I've had it used against me. It's quite brutal. So yeah. And I love the artwork. It's flavorful as hell because they can't play Quidditch because they're too busy studying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm still triggered, not because of the card or the effect, just because of the fact that I can't play. I don't have time to play with trying to do everything that I'm trying to do right now. But it's a good card against a hateful card type. So yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. All
Speaking of hateful, this next character is a doozy. I think this one's Emilio's.
Yes, we have Oliver Wood with an art that he looks like he's made of wood. His face looks like a brick,
That's
and
true.
that's the flavor. He's made of wood. So Gryffindor unique character, and once per game, you can choose one spell that requires Quidditch. It has to be a spell, and you may have it do 8 more damage.
Yes.
So that's
Combo
something.
finisher. I've used it in many occasions where it's just like just tack that on and it's just like game over. Yeah, he's a experienced Quidditch player, so I guess that all makes sense.
Yeah, and he's made of wood, so I guess he, hits hard. But
Definitely.
it's kind of
That's
it sounds
hilarious.
horrible, but I guess it is a powerful sort of take on the captain, right? So he is sort
Yes.
of
Yeah.
he knows how to make things even worse for his opponents. So yeah, cool flavor and looks powerful. I don't play Quidditch, so I can't relate anymore. But if you do want to say anything else.
I've used this card on many occasions. My wife is always mad when I get him into play, and this is one of the few characters I feel like it's worth spending 2 actions to play this character because it's like I know he'll come in handy later. It's like I said, super brutal. Tack that on with broom damage and all this other stuff. Yeah, can be a game changer.
Yeah, I actually have Oliver Wood as the starting character for a Quidditch deck.
That's cool.
Of course, right?
Yeah,
Well, that
can't
was like
blame you.
that was what's gonna happen, right? So because it's like when you're what I've realized is like Quidditch is very brutal, especially when I have a Quidditch deck and my opponent has a Quidditch deck. It's like we're
Oh
just
yeah.
doing damage back to back, and so when we approach the end of like towards the end of the game, and it's like I gotta give like a heavy punch or else I'm gonna lose or something.
Totally.
Even if I have a spell that does like 5 damage,
Mhm.
but I can use Oliver Wood, right? So that adds 8 more to that,
Yep.
so it just seems
Mona's a bad influence on me, giving me ideas. I think I'm gonna have to start with Oliver Wood now. No, I'm just teasing.
try it,
But
man. Try it
yeah, no,
out.
it might
Yeah.
have to happen.
Yeah. Why
Our
not?
next card is a very high cost power one. It's called Out of Control. It's a spell. It costs 10 power, Quidditch power, and it reads: do 6 damage to your opponent. Then your opponent chooses 4 cards in his or her hand and discards them. Good God! And if there's fewer than 4, they discard them all. Gosh, we were talking
Yeah.
about the character earlier that discards 3. Yeah, not only are you doing damage, you're discarding 4 cards from their hand. This card is out of control.
Yeah, exactly. No, it really is. I mean, it costs 10 and you're essentially doing 10 damage some form or another.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it is pretty crazy. I
Mhm.
I have yet to be able to really play it though, like I would love to, but to get up to 10, I mean, there are certain ways of getting your lessons out there faster, but it takes a lot of I don't want to say like dedication, but like you have to be able to start with the right character and do this and do that, but it might not flow with what the goal of your deck is. At least
Right,
that's what it's been for me. Like I don't want to start with Hermione, for example,
right,
just to get my lessons out because I want my starting character to do something else for me, and so
totally.
yeah, so I have had Out of Control in a deck or two, but I haven't been able to play it to a substantial amount that's actually done something significant for me.
That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely a high cost. But if it's late game and your opponent has the game pieces that they need to win, and they're a little, you're neck to neck, this definitely will throw them out of the game if you get to play it in sort of the dog style of decks that take a little longer to
Definitely.
build up, which are fun because then you can get to play stuff like this.
Exactly. That's why I like to play the game that way specifically. And the artwork's so fun. It's like I feel like we've all seen the movie where like the bucking broom and he's getting thrown around by Quirrell. You see Harry just hanging on by his thighs upside down.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, Out of Control for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Uh,
and speaking, oh,
yeah.
go ahead, Amelia.
Oh no, I just wanted to say a note for any social services that are listening to us. This is a kid
Yeah.
that is hanging out of a broom, and they find that amusing. So I don't know, falling to his death.
I
I just
didn't
wanted to
say I was
just
a
point that
parent.
out, and I do not agree with this. Just if anyone ever hears this, yeah.
uh,
Hopefully people listen. All right.
yeah, right. Yeah, I know. It's just our moms or something. All right. So speaking of expensive cards, we have Potions Class Disaster up next. I mean, this one costs 12 potions lessons. It is just crazy.
Yeah.
So it's a spell and it reads: your opponent chooses 5 of his or her cards and discards them. those cards can come from his or her hand or from play or from both. If there are fewer than 5 cards total in your opponent's hand and in play, he or she discards them all.
Yeah, that is a doozy also. That's really, the artwork's insane. I feel like Snape is so pissed off. He's like, what have you done?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, very brutal card. And yeah, the odds of getting 12 in play, like I said, you guys know that's the kind of decks I build. I have this card in a few of my potions decks, and I feel like there was one game specifically against my wife where it's like, I'm on 11 lesson count and I have 1 in my hand and I'm like finally ready to like get to 12, and then, or no, I use my second action to play that lesson. It's like, next turn I'm going to play this potions class disaster. I'm so excited. And then she uses Obliviate or Charms Exam or something. And I'm just like, no. So you spend all this time building up to it and you might not even be able to play it. So yeah, that's a risky card. To me, the risk doesn't outweigh the reward.
Yeah. And that's sort of one of the risks when it comes to having these expensive cards in your deck anyway, because you know, you can kind of tell like if somebody is planning to throw out something really expensive, right? Because their only goal is just stacking up those lessons. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing, but they're stacking up those lessons. And so you're like, all right, well, you've got something in your hand and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you get rid of that, because I don't want to see what's on the other side. So
sure, exactly.
But it's definitely a fun build, as we've been promoting for, you know, if you want to try that. If your opponent has like a big cast spell like Obliviate, and then you have Potions Disasters, like who gets to play their big spell first? So that's pretty fun.
Exactly.
Sure.
Totally.
Yep.
Exactly.
And then we go to the next one now.
Yep.
That's it's my turn, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And I'm on the theme of adventures this episode. So now I have Professor Minerva MacDonald, and she is a character which Gryffindor unique. She provides you a trans lesson, and then once per game you can just use an action. Well, actually you don't have to use an action, but once per game you can discard an opponent's adventure. It's just, you know, McDonald, she gets you in trouble, and apparently she can get you out of trouble too without, you know, any sort of hesitation. So really cool. The art is, you know, this obviously powerful woman that is staring at you down with her emerald cloak and their glasses. So really cool art, powerful card from the start of the game, probably the best card in the set in my opinion, and I think most people could agree.
Card. Oh,
yeah.
Because we hate it.
One of my starting witches, as far as all my Transfiguration decks are concerned, I don't find myself using her ability that often. But then again, the decks I build don't have too many adventures, so I think I have to sprinkle more adventures into my decks. But
no, you don't.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I do love this card.
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite cards. And I like to play it, and you know, so sometimes it's actually really come in handy when my opponent plays Caught by Snape, because this is one of the very few cards that will allow you to get rid of that. You know, so you can't necessarily solve it, right? Because you don't get the reward, but once per game you may discard the adventure that your opponent has played. And so if it's a really tough adventure that you're just like, it's not even that it's a pain to solve it. It's almost like sometimes it's actually impossible to do so, just depending on where in the game you are. And once we get to the Chamber of Secrets, we can have like a better discussion on Caught by Snape. But yeah, this is one of the few cards that I have noticed that will get rid of that or something as brutal, which I don't know what adventure is, but I love this card. Yeah.
Definitely very useful starting witch and a support character. But that brings us to our next item, which is the Put Outer. Such a silly name.
It is.
It reads, you may use 2 actions to choose one of your opponent's cards in play other than his or her starting character, obviously, and return it to his or her hand. So yeah, very flavorful. Just like the Put Outer in the books and the movies, it's just like sucking the lights out of the lanterns or the lamp posts and everything. So just take one of your opponent's cards in play and put it back in their hand. You probably would want to use that on like a creature or something, but who knows?
Yeah, I would say, go ahead, Emilio.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, it would be like because you have to use both of your actions. It really kind of sucks because it's almost like kind of expensive for you, if you will. So it would be making sure that you use a card that would cost them more to play again, like a Fluffy or something like that,
Exactly.
or even like a Unicorn where they had to discard one to play it, so it's like, well, maybe you don't want to do that again or something along those lines, but no.
I don't use this card myself, but it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite cards, to be honest. I
Cool.
think with Draco, Malfoy, Slytherin, it's a really good card because if you have it out, of course, and you play an item, then you get the extra action. So you could really put your opponent in a pickle if they have cards that are costed to get out, as you were all mentioning, the discard card, discard lessons or stuff like that, or if they're playing adventures and they're paying the 2 actions. You get net advantage if your opponent has an adventure deck, right? Because you use 2 actions to return the adventure, so you're neck to neck, but you're also playing an extra item card each turn because of Draco Slytherin, which gives you an extra action when you play an item. So it's one of my favorite cards, but you do need to build around it for sure.
That's a good point. Sense. Yeah. Okay, so it brings us to our next card, which is a match. I believe it's the first match that we've gone over. Okay, so it's to win. Oh, it's called Ravenclaw Match. That's the title. To win, do 10 damage to your opponent while this card is in play. The damage doesn't have to be all at once. And so that's kind of the point of a match, right? So like it's in play and you guys are essentially playing in order to get to whatever it is to win it. And the prize, the winner searches his or her deck. He or she may take up to 2 lesson cards from his or her deck and put them into play. Then that player shuffles his or her deck. So it's one of the matches, one of the few matches that I actually don't play often. The winner searches his or her deck. That's a really good ability, of course. I mean, especially when it's like the beginning of the game, but to do 10 damage like right away, not right away, but I mean enough to a point where you still need those 2 lessons in order to do anything else,
Right. I don't imagine many people playing this and then catch the snitch right away. It's more or less you're actually going to try to do that 10 damage over the course of a few turns. And I know that's how I play because, I am trying to search my deck and get 2 lessons and not leave it up to the luck of the draw. So, this card, I do have quite a couple copies in my Quidditch decks. I like to sprinkle in all the house matches specifically because there's really cool flavor there.
There are, for sure.
All right, it's Ravenclaw, so he's Dobby, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we move on to our very underwhelming card?
Let's do it.
So now comes Scabbers, and he looks tired of life. He has stars on his back. It's like rough, tattooed rat, and we all know why. They look so tired, and basically Scabbers, when they're discarded from play, just like Peter Pettigrew, it just returns to haunt you. So in this case, it returns to your hand, but it's a very underwhelming 1 damage each turn and a health of 3. So very much like the character that it embodies. It's just annoying. It slithers away, and it's always around. But why do you want it around? So that's my summary of it. I don't know if you use this card in any deck.
I do not. I have so many copies of it, and I feel like I wish it was better.
Exactly. I mean, at least like 3 damage. Can we just have a 3? But it's 1, and so it's like, all right.
Maybe reverse it. It should be maybe 3 damage and 1 health, so it can get away easier, but it's like worth it.
Like
something. Yeah, exactly. But whatever. At least he has stars on his fur, whatever that means.
He's a tattooed rat. He's been through things. Okay.
Yeah, he's thug loving 100%.
There we go. All right, and that brings us to our next character. It's a Gryffindor. We got Seamus Finnegan. Once during each of your turns, you may discard 2 cards from your hand to get 1 more action. Not bad, especially when you find yourself in a position where you're looking at your hand and it's like, I have dead cards. It's like, I have Incendio and my opponent doesn't have creatures. Or like something very similar situation where it's like, I can't, or no time to play and they're not even playing Quidditch cards. It's like, this is a dead weight to me. I can actually turn that into an action by discarding them. Very handy, but again, have to use 2 actions to get Seamus in play, so gotta figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes, yeah, I guess like that. I have had Seamus in play. You know, Seamus, I've had him in play. I've had in my character deck that starts with Ron Weasley, and so playing characters only takes one action instead of two.
That's right.
Yeah, you know, and so this is actually a really good one because you can have up to however many copies as you want for, and then you know, you do end up having like some cards that you just don't need or that are already in play, you know. So I do like Seamus, but only when it's played under certain conditions, of course. So
That makes sense.
I know people are really into this card. In some, like the meta game is sort of divided with this card. I know that some people love it. Extractions are always good for sure. So
Definitely.
luck of the Irish or whatever.
There we go. I
yeah,
like that.
yeah, perfect.
Oh, the next one's my favorite card. Mona, please tell us
Yes,
about it.
yes. This is a Slytherin match. And it's a healing match, which is awesome. And so to
Yes.
win, do 15 damage to your opponent while this card is in play. That damage again does not have to be done all at once. The prize is the winner may shuffle up to 15 non-healing cards from his or her discard pile into his or her deck. So this is a very great card. Definitely one that is high on my list for matches that I have in my Quidditch deck. And one that I play right away with Catch the Snitch.
Absolutely.
It's
I've
just
done
cut and dry.
on a couple of occasions, and yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just, it feels like a mean thing to do, but it's also like, man, with Quidditch you're not focusing on healing as much, so to be able to have the luck of having a Slytherin match and a Catch a Snitch and the power to be able to do both of them, you might as well, because yeah, healing 15 is nothing to sneeze at. That's like one away from the elixir of life.
Yep. True that.
Yeah, I love that card. Play it so many times.
Can't relate. But sounds
Let's
great.
go. Yeah. Next.
So, we're gonna move on to the start of Term Feast. A charm spell costs 4, and basically just gets 4 lessons from your discard pile to your hand. The art always made me hungry as a kid.
Oh,
I
yeah.
pulled this card so often, and as a kid, I was always eating like sliced ham rolled in cheese. So I would just see this and get immediately. And right now, I just want some ham and cheese.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes,
It's very
nice.
But yeah,
delicious.
good, useful lesson. If you're discarding your lessons, or if you are unlucky enough, like Mona, to get all your lessons discarded in one go, this card could help you get them back. So that's useful.
Yeah. True story. I love the art. The feast. Yeah, this feast and the Halloween feast. I just absolutely love the art. So
Totally.
perfect.
Yeah, this is more like Be Your Guest from.
Yeah.
Yes,
Beauty and the
Beauty and the
Beast.
Beast. Exactly. Well,
Cool.
that brings us to our next item, which is support banner. At the end of your turn, draw a card. If you played at least one spell card that needs Quidditch power that turn, I'd never play this card. I don't want to damage myself. Although I'm sure if you are thirsting for resources, that would come in handy. But again, it feels like a Harry Potter card trying to damage yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have a lot of experience with this card in particular. I just really like the art. I think it's great because it's definitely one of those. It's like, oh, I remember that in the books, sort of thing.
Yes, totally. Yeah, I think it reads Potter for President. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. So on to the next one. It's the Sorting Hat.
Yes.
Which is an item. Love the art on it. And it says you may use 2 actions to search your deck. You may take a character card of a character that isn't already in play and put it into play, then shuffle your deck.
So cool.
Yeah, I'm assuming you use this a lot in your character deck, or am I wrong?
Actually, I don't.
Okay.
I don't use it in the character deck because the character deck well, actually, I'll show it to you. I can kind of break it down and put a list out or something. But yeah, I mean, it's like the majority of it is just characters, and so I really wouldn't. However, there is a character that I put in there that allows me to do something similar. So, but the reason that I wouldn't, Doug, is because of how expensive it is, and in my character deck, because of how many characters I have, I actually don't have a lot of lessons.
I see.
And so I wouldn't be able.
Okay.
So to get to 8 lessons would actually be almost impossible with the
challenge.
Deck that I have. So,
Okay.
nonetheless, good card.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and the art is great. They obviously know something we don't because it's not a unique item. So maybe they have like a closet of sorting hats. Though I'm pretty sure that's
Good
not
point.
the case.
Right?
And I love that they did the balance of this is a transfiguration item, so it's all red around, and the only banner that's not in the picture is Gryffindor's, which is red and gold. So it's like it balances out all the house colors, and just an amazing art.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Very
And
good.
that moves us actually to our next card, which is Trevor. Right before in the movies, before we see the Sorting Hat, we actually meet Trevor, which is like in front of Professor McGonagall, who's just like, who the hell would carry this creature into this castle? And then, so Trevor, in the movies, he gets you into trouble, but in the card game, he gets you out of trouble. So when you play that card, you can just it reads, sorry, I'm reading, and it's cost 3 care for magical creatures. It's unique, and it has 1 health. But then when you play this card, you may put a lesson card from your discard pile into your hand. And whenever a spell damages you, you may let Trevor take that damage instead. So that's pretty handy. You can, we all get lessons discarded because we all take damage. So why not have 1 in your hand when you play this card? And then if your opponent is going to fry you with a big spell, then it fries the poor toad instead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just pictured Trevor just jumping out in front, being like, "No,
I'll take this one."
Slow motion. I'll take the bullet.
Exactly.
Sadly, he doesn't take the bullet that we all need to be protected, which is Dobby's health.
Yes,
true.
man.
So,
Seriously.
Once again, a card that's really good against spell damage decks. It replaces itself and it gets you a lesson, right? So it's like a 1-for-1. But yeah, spell damage decks are not that common. But if you're playing against it, this is a cool card to include, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, that leads us to our next card. It's a spell. It only costs 1 charms power, and it reads, Chocolate Frogs, search your deck. You may take a wizard or witch card from your deck, show it to your opponent, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. So that's really handy for character decks. But again, it says a wizard or witch, so you're not getting Hagrid.
Right.
Or I guess any ghosts or anything like that. So it's very specifically witches or wizards. I like this card. I've used it a couple times.
Yeah, good card for sure.
It used to be better before Chamber of Secrets, because then we have an upgrade to this card. But yeah, when it first came out, definitely a good tutor for characters, just with the limitations that you stated. Yeah.
All right, so on to the next. We've got Comet 260. It is an item, a broom. It provides 1 Quidditch power, and it reads, once during each of your opponent's turns, you may prevent 1 damage done to you. If you play this card and you already have a broom in play, discard the old one. So, Doug, did you say that you used this one, or that you like this card?
I used this one.
Yeah, I think that's Emilio. Yep.
Oh, okay.
I would use this one. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, cool. So I don't have a lot of experience with this one in particular, but this does seem to be a good card, and if Emilio will use it, then I guess I would too.
Well,
I think it's the opposite, but sure.
It seems like the inverse of most brooms. Most brooms that I've seen or I guess the Nimbus 2000 and 2001 are both very much like tack on more damage, whereas this is like prevent damage. So I guess, as far as a broom goes, you can either speed up and go do some damage or speed up and get away. So it's pretty flavorful.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I like. I like that style of flying away from the spells. It comes into play early. If you have, the Scissor Sister in play, Madame Hooch, then she will get it out immediately, and then you can play it next turn, probably, if you have played a lesson or not, and then you're protected. Regardless, depending on how many turns it stays in play, it will protect you quite a bit, and it provides you an extra lesson. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely handy broom.
Yep.
Cool. And then is it my turn?
Yes, I think so.
Cool. Now we have a Quidditch card, because I love Quidditch cards. And the spell called Defense, because now playing defensive is a spell, and it costs 10. And basically what it reads such as, during your opponent's turn, you prevent all damage done to you. So that's pretty cool. I guess you're in your broom and they can't touch you, and you're being defensive.
Yeah,
very
good against creatures and everything. Yeah, but again, high cost. It's hard to get that one into play.
Yeah.
Yeah, true story. But it's definitely good if you've got someone like me, for example, who has that Oliver Wood starting character.
Yes.
And you have that coming to you. So very, very good for sure.
And that leads us to our next creature. This is one of the craziest creatures, and actually there's some more information about this we're going to dive into, but this is the Devil's Snare, and it reads, well, it costs 4 Care of Magical Creatures power, and it reads, to play this card, discard one of your creature lessons from play. At the end of each of your turns, remove all damage counters from Devil's Snare. So this thing heals itself. It's ridiculous, and the damage it does each turn is 2, so not too crazy, but enough to be annoying after a while, considering it's going to heal itself. And its health is 6. So that's the problem. Most like cards, like low level cards that are doing damage to creatures, I want to say are 3 damage here, 4 damage there. So if you're lucky, you can maybe get 2, 4, or 1 of each, and you could do 7 damage in 1 turn. But like, gosh, if you're only able to do a little, it's like, it makes it pointless to try to do anything less than 6 on your 2 actions, because you know it's just going to heal itself. But this is essentially the Charizard, well, not this one particularly, but the promo version of this. I'm going to send this over to Mona, because I know you know a lot about this.
But before Mona starts, we have to correct you, because she'll do it anyways.
Okay.
This doesn't cost 4. It costs $7,000. Anyways, go ahead, Mona.
It is really interesting though, because Devil Snare is one of those few. I think they said that there was only like 200 or 300 that were ever printed, and so to be honest, I'm not too sure if it came as a release from the movie or what. Because it's just one of those cards. It's like you have Strategy Session, which is a Quidditch Cup promo that came along with the movie release in November of 2001, and so, but with Devil Snare, it's really sort of interesting, because any information I have found about Devil Snare is always sort of like, kind of wonky. But I believe it comes in the game, the PC, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone PC, which I have that up there. But it's almost like, to pull it from that, I have never heard of anybody doing it, but that's where we say it comes from. So
I saw a YouTube video where someone did pull it this year. So
Oh,
I might
wow.
try to put that in our YouTube, in our show notes, so you guys
Please
can check
do.
that out. Yeah, it was just unbelievable. And it was from the box you just described, the Sorcerer's Stone 2001
And it was a sealed
PC.
box?
Yes, which I was like, where did you
Wow.
get that? And it
Yeah.
was unbelievable. But yeah, this, I'm collecting promos. I would love to own this one day, but I just know it's most likely never going to happen. And like you said, it's like wonky. I was doing some research myself, and a few of the resources I was reading, they were saying Wizards of the Coast never even made this card, or they were saying like they didn't. It's just crazy that it's such an enigma in this card game, for sure.
Yeah, it really is, because it kind of makes you wonder, okay, so if it came in the game, which obviously we know that it does, and I'm excited to see that, because it's one of those things. It's like, we know that we hear that certain things come from somewhere, but to be able to actually see it done today is something different, right? So like, for example, some of the promo cards that came out with, like, at the film premieres, that you got like along with your popcorn or something, like, I didn't experience that, some other people might have, but so it's really kind of cool to see that. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like, man, like, what makes this one so much more special? You know what I mean? And so, or why were they so printed in such a limited capacity? It's one of those kind of things that I don't know if maybe we'll know the answer one day. Hopefully we get some people on this podcast.
Seems to be a mystery for now.
And for our listeners, this is the promo stamped one, right? They're non-promo stamped one, which is exactly the same card, same art. It's an uncommon in the set, and you can get it. So just I
can give you 17 if you want.
Exactly.
If you want it, let me know.
Common.
I'll give it to you.
Well, technically it's uncommon, but anyway. We can move on from Devil Snare, though. But yeah, I know someone's offering $700 right now in the Revival group if you have one.
Yes.
Just goes to show it's a highly sought after promo.
So by the time that you listen to this podcast, it may be worth thousands of dollars. Who knows at this rate? But we're gonna move to the next spell, which is Defindo. Is that how you say it?
Yes. That's it.
And then it costs 8, and it removes any card in play. Basically, you choose any opponent's cards, and it's removed.
Yeah, and it's another promo. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's pretty because it's actually foil. So
that's right. Yeah. Which I kind of wish that they would have done a Devil Snare foil promo.
Okay.
Not to. No, but I mean, like, but that's the thing is, like, if it's so limited, okay, I'll drop it. But like, if it's all right, I'll drop it. Because I'm about to go.
It's
Yeah.
all
So
good.
just for the record, if we see a dubious seller trying to sell a Devil Snare promo for $7,000, we think we might be Mona.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
He's trying to
be
push this card too much.
yeah. If the name is the Mon Monster, it'll be
There we
good.
go.
Anamo or something. I don't know. There
Yeah,
you
okay,
go.
but to Defendo is a good card. It's a nice card and it's pretty.
And
Definitely.
there's lots of
Agreed.
cards that are based on it that will have like less restrictions that we'll talk about in the future, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, cool. So on to the next.
More restrictions, sorry.
Yeah. So on to the next, which is going to be a creature. It's a fairy and one card that I have never had in my decks ever. And it's called Doxy. When you play this card, you may choose another creature in play, do 2 damage to it. It seems like a pretty decent card. There's really nothing wrong with it, except for, in my opinion, the 2 damage is a little bit low for it costing 6, which is why I think I've never been able to justify having it in my deck when I have so many other options.
Yeah, I think it's unique when you play a creature and it does damage right away, because there's so many times you play a creature and then it becomes your opponent's turn and they kill that creature before it becomes your turn and you're going to use it to do damage. So at least with this, and I know a certain dragon, like once you play them, they are doing damage no matter what. So it seems like that could be advantageous. But again, yeah, I don't really play this card. The artwork creeps me out. What the hell is that thing?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is kind of odd. It's like, why are your lips blue? I
Yeah.
haven't seen you. I don't know what you're doing. Your fingernails are odd. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, insect arms too, because it's like an insect. I don't know.
Yes.
It's very
Yeah.
weird, but
Reminds-
it is the mama of monsters that when they enter the battlefield they inflict damage. It was just sort of a failed version, I feel. Of that.
Mm. Yeah, Black Bat, I know we'll probably go, but Black Bat's another one that's really good. Is like you play it, it does 2 damage right away. So even if it's discarded, it's like, well, I did damage anyway. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that leads us to Hufflepuff Match, our second match. Or actually, yeah, it's our third
right?
at this
Yeah.
point. Yep. It reads, to win, do 8 damage to your opponent while this card is in play. That doesn't have to be all at once. And the prize is the winner may draw 5 cards. The loser takes 5 damage. So interesting prize condition. It's like kind of how, I don't know, drawing 5 is doing 5 damage to yourself. I don't really like this one. Again, this
Right.
is also a promo that is holographic, and that's the thing. All of the other house
Nice.
matches are available in holo, and Hufflepuff Match wasn't unless it's the promo. So I feel like I sought the promo just to like kind of complete like the 4 matches of each house and have
That's
them look
cool.
all foil. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
a big
Nice.
fan of that. But yeah, not too often I'm playing this card, even as big of a Quidditch head as I am.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on that.
I would play it because it's Hufflepuff and it's the best house
There
ever.
you go. Woo!
Oh yeah,
Alright.
Harry also looks like he's some sort of a LA person. Like his features here are also sort of bricky and weird. I don't know who drew this. It looks cool, but his face does look like an adult, like superhero or something. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
It looks like he's
Yeah.
flying by Snape. I don't understand why that would be the case, unless he's like a referee. I have no
it
idea.
looks like he's a referee in this
Okay.
case, and the
Yeah.
Snitch is like a golden ball with wings. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's I like it. I think we like it so much that we should just move on to the next
Sure.
one.
I was
so-
actually gonna say really quick. I think the artwork though is it comes straight from the books where there
Mhm.
was a match, right, where Snape was
Oh, okay.
where Snape was a ref, and yeah. Anyway, okay, let's go.
Yep.
Yes, and now we get another annoying adventure. And this is In the Stands. In the Stands has Professor Quirrell that just came out of the bathroom and appeared in the Quidditch Cup thing and just fell over. You have Hermione, who was probably setting the fire to Snape's robe.
Yes.
And then the effect is your opponent can't play creature cards, so I guess you
Mhm.
can take creatures to the Quidditch pitch. And then to solve, your opponent has to choose 4 creature cards in their hand and discard them. That's brutal. And
Yeah.
then, but as a reward, they draw a card.
Yeah, that's
So
mean
it's
against
It
creature
balances
decks.
out. You see.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
That
I mean,
is.
if I had a creature deck and I was facing someone that main deck 4 of this, I would be, well, I'm gonna go now.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
You contemplate your choices because this
Yes.
is really aggressive.
Definitely.
It's so aggressive. You're right. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
And the reward of draw one card, like no
yeah,
thanks.
that's so lame.
Yeah.
It's really funny. Some of the adventures that have these like really lame rewards, it's like, okay, so this is just trying to make a mockery. I gotcha. Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, speaking of which, we have Into the Forest, which is another adventure. The effect is whenever one of your creatures does damage to your opponent, it does 1 more damage. To solve, your opponent skips a total of 5 actions. Those actions don't need to be one right after the other, and the reward is your opponent may draw a card. So just another sort of like really brutal one where you've got even if you have one creature in play and just to have 1 extra damage done, I mean that could be the actual card that you need, right? And so any amount of damage is really bad. And then to solve it, to skip 5 actions, I mean that's either it's either you're limiting yourself for 5 turns or you're skipping what 2.5
2.5. That's
2.5
ridiculous.
turns. Yeah, it's just like, man, and then all just so that you can draw a card. It's like, oh my god, man, at least just give me like a piece of candy as a reward instead. I mean, because that would probably be more appreciated.
Don't be deceived, everyone that's not looking at this episode. Mona is enjoying so much. Every time she says like they have to skip 5 actions, you could see like how she enjoys to say that.
There's like flames in my eyes. I'm just so happy about it.
It's adventures like this though that make me understand why certain people are like, we don't even use adventures in this house. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
You play adventure, you go home. It's like, all right.
But this is a great card for a small creature decks. In Magic the Gathering, you normally call them white weenie because white is the color of playing lots of creatures that are, have low attack and low health. So in this case, if you have like a way to draw lots of cards and play lots of creatures, then they will really add up. But as Mona said, even if you only have one, it can really add up because your opponent is probably not going to skip 5 actions to get rid of this.
Yeah, unless you got McGonagall or as like a helping character, you're most likely screwed.
Yeah.
And the flavor that they're in the forest, so maybe they're scared and everything is worse. I like to think that that's why they get more damage or something.
That makes sense. Well, that leads us to our next spell. It's Jawbind Potion. Costs 4 potion power, and it reads, do 2 damage to your opponent during your opponent's next turn. He or she can't play spell cards. And very flavorful for Jawbind Potion. Yeah, how are you going to enunciate a spell if you can't open your mouth?
Yeah,
so I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've all had a jawbind in our lives.
Yes.
That's true. More often than not. I definitely like this card. Nothing. It's pretty straightforward.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is straightforward. Like you can't talk. No, go do something else.
Yes.
But however, you can call on creatures. I don't know how, but you can. So there you go.
All right. So
Parchment?
Yep, next one is Missing Parchment. It is a spell. It costs 2 charms. Look at your opponent's hand. If there are any spell cards there, choose one of them and discard it. Yeah, another card that's pretty straightforward. It is it can be helpful, I guess, just depending on the opponent, but just to be able to look at your opponent's hand is really what I think this card is doing for you more than anything else.
Right. And if let's say it's early game and you see they have an Obliviate, it's like, nope, no thank you, get out.
Yeah, get out for sure.
So yeah, that's another straightforward one. I feel like these towards the end do get pretty straightforward.
Yeah, which is
the
cool.
Next one, very straightforward. Penalty shot, draw 3 cards. That's all.
That's it. Draw 3.
Exactly. And
but the flavor is that's it.
No, this one, just a resource builder. That's really it.
Oh my god.
Okay, so we can move on to the next one. You see that we've switched out our order randomly, so maybe after this we'll retake. But the next one is an adventure, my favorite type of card, and it's Pep Talk. And Oliver Wood is. I don't know what he's doing to Harry, but Harry looks very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the adventure has the effect that the first action your opponent takes on each of their turns must be used to draw a card. So it looks like you're forcing your opponent to draw cards. That's Oliver is trying to get Harry to do something. And to solve, your opponent shows you a card from their hand with a printed power of 8 or more. So this wouldn't work against dogs decks, and then your opponent just draws 2 cards because you do have high costed cards. So that's interesting, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this this is actually one of the adventures that it could really sort of be like a game changer 100% depending on like I have played against opponents that really sort of keep their costs low and so they don't have heavy hitters in their deck. And so the whole for the rest of the game it's like, well, I won't ever be able to solve this unless of course you have like a McGonagall or a flying car or something like that that allows you to discard whatever the adventure is.
Yeah.
Which most of the time sometimes that's not the case. And so this is a really interesting adventure in that you probably won't be able to solve it.
Yeah.
And the reward is kind of lame.
Well, that brings us to our next card. We're going to try to get our order back. I think it goes Emilio, me, and Mona. But our next card is Petrificus Totalis. It's a low cost, a 1 Transfiguration power, and it reads, it's a spell. It reads, choose one of either player's creatures in play and a lesson card in that player's discard pile. Discard that creature and put that lesson into play. So yeah, you're just kind of swapping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is as complicated as it sounds. It is sort of a cut and dry. You're kind of just swapping them. I haven't played this too much. I like that you can do that, and it's still pretty cheap to play. So I like the art. Hermione, I feel like she's one of the more like in throughout all of the sets and all of the cards, I feel like the way she looks varies the most.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's just like, wait, what? Like, okay, that's her too. Okay.
Yep, that's each artist's interpretation for sure. Yeah.
Which I love. That's what I love so much about it.
Me too. All right, I think this next one's you, Mona.
All right, let's go.
It's a great one.
Power play, 100%. Yeah, power play costs 6. It's a spell. Play this card only if a match is in play. Do 7 damage to your opponent. So this is a phenomenal one, especially if you have like a unique case where you have an extra action that turn and you can play a match, you can play this, and you can win whatever that match is by playing Catch the Snitch. I mean, you've really done some serious damage.
Well, even let's say the only reason I know this is because it's happened recently. I'll play a Slytherin match. I'll play a power play. It's almost as if I don't need to catch a snitch because then if I also have Oliver Wood in play, 7 + 8, you do the 15 damage needed for the Slytherin match. It's just crazy. And plus, if you had a broom in play, you could do even more damage. So yeah, I love this card. But again, the contingency of a match being in play makes it tricky because there's plenty of instances where my hand's just loaded with power plays and I'm like, no one has a match in play. Damn it. So
yeah, no, that is good.
So I think this next one, though, is Emilio. It's our next adventure.
Yep.
Yes, and we have a race for the snitch. And this adventure, which I love, your opponent discards the card he or she draws at the start of each of their turns. Oh, wow. And to solve, your opponent discards their whole hand, of course. And your opponent reward is that you discard your hand. So this is like, you're both racing and you both lose, I guess, because
right,
you're both losing your hands.
Yeah.
The artwork is certainly interesting. What's happening to the other Quidditch player?
They're actually losing their face.
Yeah, they're like becoming like
how high they're getting. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're becoming just like clay or something. Yeah, it looks weird.
Very strange.
Yep.
All right, well, that leads to our next adventure, Snape's Bias. The effect is your opponent can't use actions to draw cards. Oof. And that kind of can really screw them over. To solve, your opponent lets you search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. And your opponent's reward is your opponent may draw a card. So kind of an interesting one. In order, like you're screwing over your opponent, but then to solve, you give them the ability to find 2 cards from their deck, any 2 cards. I'm guessing that could be healing. Like that's a little crazy. I don't think I would be playing this one often.
Yeah, I actually, when I first started playing the game, I had somebody that would play this more often than not, and it was always at the very beginning of the game. So it was almost as though they had it in their mind that I'm going to play this. This is my go-to. They for sure had the max 4 just like to kind of increase the probability of getting it because they wanted some cards. Yeah. And so, it's like you're almost like for sure going to get me to say, I mean, okay, well, just do that then, and I'll just draw a card. So yeah, it is kind of interesting.
Definitely. And yeah, Snape looks just like he's described in the books, that nose particularly.
Yeah, and the next adventure is called Sticking Up for Neville, and I like the art and how the clouds look the very same from Snape's bias to
Yeah.
Sticking Up for Neville, and so it's almost like these two really coincide together. Patrick Faracy is a phenomenal artist. Okay, so here we go. The effect is before each of your turns, your opponent takes 4 damage. To solve, your opponent discards his or her hand, and your opponent's reward is they may put up to 4 non-healing cards from their discard pile at the bottom of their deck in any order. So yeah, I mean it's a good adventure. I haven't played too much with it, but that's a really good reward. Especially if like once you do that reward, then maybe your next card or a couple cards after that will have you shuffle your deck, right? And so
Exactly.
those cards won't stay at the bottom. So
Totally. And I believe that leads to our next spell card with Emilio.
Yes. And just to say, Sticking Up for Nil was also a big card when this set was released. It was almost
Popular.
overused.
Okay.
So
Wow.
yeah, but then we have strategy session. Cost 3. People are making plans, and they put 3 Quidditch lessons from their hand into play. So a ramp spell to get your lessons out quicker. Oops, sorry.
We're under attack. No, I use this. I use this card often, obviously, because I'm trying to get lessons into play as quickly as possible. So yes, this one I usually run 4 of. Very handy.
For sure. Yeah.
That leads us to our next potion. It's the Weakness Potion. Costs 7 potion power, and it reads, to play this card, discard one of your potion lessons from play. Do 5 damage to your opponent. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to you by your opponent's creatures. So not only are you doing damage, you're protecting yourself a bit from
Mhm.
creatures specifically.
Yeah, this card does a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it just keeps going and going. It's a good card for sure.
It makes losing that potions lesson like justifiable for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So our
Cool.
next one is Bloodroot Poison. It costs 2 potion. It's a spell. To play this card, discard one of your potion lessons from play. Do 4 damage to your opponent or to a creature of your choice. So another one of those cards is pretty cut and dry. Do 4 damage either to your opponent or to a creature, which is good because it gives you the option. So that's always fun when it comes to those cards. So
Definitely. And that leads us to our next spell with Emilio.
And that's Bravado, one of my favorite spells. It costs 3. It's a charm spells, and then any spell you play next costs 5 less power to play. So it can really cost down your expensive spells, and if you're playing a deck with extra actions, you can also pack a punch with this card.
that's right. Yep,
Definitely. Very, very handy.
for sure.
Next is Bruisewort Bomb. I use this quite a bit because it doesn't require discarding lessons, but it's a cost 3 potion power, and it's a spell that is healing, and it reads, shuffle up to 5 non-healing cards from your discard pile into your deck. So yeah, if I have 2 of these, I usually like to play them back to back and just heal 10 in one go, and yeah, don't have to discard any potion lessons. So it's pretty handy, low cost healing spell.
Yep, I'm with you on that. Very, very nice. The next one we've got is an item. It's a broom. It costs 2, and it provides 1 Quidditch power. And it reads, when you play this card, look at the top 4 cards of your deck and put them back on top in any order. If there are fewer than 4, look at them all. If you play this card and you already have a broom in play, as all of them say, then you got to get rid of the old one.
Yeah.
So it's really cool because especially if, if you play it and then you can choose look at the top 4 and then you have another action, right? So hopefully those 4 will do something good for you, and then you can draw a card if you needed to, and you'll already know what it is. So
It's funny.
card.
It's one of the cheaper broom cards, and yeah, with a name of Clean Sweep 7, it just kind of reminds you of like, oh, what brooms are actually used for other than flying around.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
definitely like a little bit funny in that regard, but yeah, definitely a good low cost broom.
Yeah.
And now we move to Cobbing,
Yep.
which also apparently is a spell. We all can cast spells by, using our elbows now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it does 4 damage to your opponent. Then your opponent choose 1 card that he has in play and discards it.
Yeah.
It costs
Yep.
7 though, so yeah.
That makes sense. The ability to do damage and and force your opponent to discard something in play. Yeah, pretty brutal.
Yeah, definitely brutal for sure. It's I've had it played against me, not fun.
Definitely. That leads us to our next creature. It's a plant type, Cobra Lily. At the end of each of your turns, remove all damage counters from Cobra Lily. So again, like Devil Snare, this will heal itself if you don't kill it in your turn. But the damage each turn is 2 and the health is 3. So pretty straightforward. I know a lot of people, ever since Chamber of Secrets came out, have built like plant-based decks, and I have yet to do that. But yeah, with Professor Sprout and stuff, that's got to be good.
Yeah, I do have a plant tribal deck with Sprout as a starting character. It has 4 Cobra Lily for sure, Umbrella Flowers and others as well. But yeah, it's definitely plant heavy with Mandrake Root as another one, like you said, from Chamber of Secrets.
Totally.
Yeah, definitely a good one.
Yeah, and also a very popular card since the start of the game, even before Sprout.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes sense.
All right, next one we have is a creature, and it is a fox, and it is a cunning fox.
Yes.
And it's pretty cut and dry. It does 3 damage, 1 health, and it looks like it's, like searching for Bambi. Like the art is just really funny. It's like kind of not as like magical, if you will. Not that it needs to be. I mean, it's a fox, but
yes.
whatever. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just sort of interesting.
Lurking in the woods, ready
That's
to
right.
pounce. Yes.
Well, yeah, that's something, and that's a creature. And then we have a spell that costs 1 transfiguration, and it's desk into a pig. I wish I had that skill for those boring classes. Just
Yeah.
like make something happen.
Yeah.
And then to play this card, you discard one of your lessons in play, and you can search your deck and take up to 3 creatures from your deck, show them to your opponent, and put them into your hand. So you trade a lesson, you trade 2 cards and an action for 3 creature cards. So that's not a bad trade necessarily, but it is a lesson. So it could set you back if you don't have enough lessons. So I don't know. I've never played this card, but maybe in the past it was more useful when there were less tutors or something. Do any of you use this?
I do not play this card either, but it's like we were talking, the one Charms card earlier was saying get 4 creatures cards from your discard pile. Like, it makes me want to make like a 3-color deck now of Charms, Transfiguration, and creatures to just really work to help one another out. But yeah, this seems like it could be handy if you are creatures and Transfiguration. But again, I've never really played this card.
Yeah, me either. I don't want to get rid of lessons.
Fair enough.
So, yep.
That leads us to our next one, which is Drowsiness Draught. It costs 8 potion power. Do 3 damage to your opponent. During your opponent's next turn, he or she can't use actions to play lesson cards. So yeah, brutal. It just puts your opponent to sleep, essentially.
Yep,
Yeah.
they're taking a nap for the next turn.
Should cost less though for this.
Agreed. 8 is very high.
Yeah. Yeah, enough said. I don't really love it.
Yeah.
Same.
Kind of is what it is. Okay, so next after that is Fouled. It's a spell that costs 4 Quidditch power. Do 4 damage to your opponent. During your opponent's next turn, he or she gets 1 fewer actions. If this would mean your opponent has fewer than 1 action, he or she still gets 1. So it's for the most part, the spells in the Quidditch Cup are they do damage and then some, for the most part. And so it's one of those it's the name of the game, right? It's extra brutal. So 4 damage plus something else is always good, especially with as cheap as Fouled is.
Yeah, it's very flavorful. You're fouling your opponent, and I run 4 of this in any Quidditch deck that I have because it's very, very useful.
Easily, for sure.
Yeah, that's a nasty card. I do love the art of that you see like the wind. It's like kind of blurry, I guess. It's interesting. Yeah. Everything's a mess. So, and that moves on to our next card as a spell, and it's costs only 1 charms. It's gone. It has Hagrid confused with a little tiny cage that's open, and you look at your opponent's hand and discard any creature from it. Yeah.
Yep.
Very straightforward and
1 creature. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. Useful.
Very.
That leads us to Mice to Snuff Boxes, which is 5 Transfiguration power. It's a spell. Choose up to 2 creatures in play and return them to their owner's hands. So again, Yeah, would love to use that against Fluffy and any other creatures that I'm up against. But yeah, I don't really play this card too often either, but I could see it being useful.
It is useful. I've had opponents play it against me, and it's always a pain. I'm like, 2? Are you sure it's 2? And they're like, yes, it's 2. Get him out of here. And I'm like, ugh.
For a
Yeah.
common, that's pretty,
It's
True.
pretty powerful, and it's
Yeah.
also like up to, so it doesn't have the restrictions of Raven into writing desk, or that it requires you to discard 2 creatures, but there must be 2 creatures, right?
Right.
So very flexible, and yeah, this will be annoying to play against for sure.
Totally.
True that. Okay, so next one is Mopsus Potion. It costs 8 potion lessons. It's a spell. Do 3 damage to your opponent or to a creature of your choice. So again, it's one of those that gives you the option, so you can have this in your deck, and it will also help if you're playing a opponent who has a creature deck. So that's always good, because sometimes they just sneak up on you. You're like, oh damn, you got creatures, and so it's kind of good to be able to have something. It is expensive just for 3 damage, but it kind of gives you the
That's exactly what I was going to say, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a way better charms that can do much more than this for less. It's weird. I think someone was sleeping on the potions on the research and development team of Wizards, and
Right.
they
Drowsiness Drought.
confused the 8 for whatever, maybe a
Yeah.
4. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But now we have what we feel we needed to play this card is Ouch. It's 5 Quidditch, does 5 damage to your opponent, and if your opponent has any cards in hand, they choose one and discard it. So this is nasty, because late game you don't have that many cards in hand probably, and the ones that you're holding on to are probably you are holding them for a reason to use them, and you're losing them. So this is a powerful card.
Another one I play 4 of. It's very handy in Quidditch
True
decks.
that. 100%.
Next is our practice match, which it reads, to win, do 5 damage to your opponent while this card is in play. That damage doesn't have to all be done at once, and the prize is the winner may draw 4 cards. So not playing this match too often. It's too low stakes. I feel like you could play this card, and then the next on your first action and your second action could be ouch, and you win immediately. But again, the prize of drawing 4 cards isn't very attractive unless my hand sucks.
Exactly. Yeah, it's one of those. It's like anytime something allows me to draw cards, I really have to be careful, because I might be going against somebody who's just going to do a whole bunch of damage to me or make me draw cards or whatever, and then I'm like, well, that doesn't really help. So I'm with you on that.
Totally. I think we're in the last 10 here, not including the lessons.
Yep. All right, let's go. So we've got Pulling Up, which is a spell. It costs 4 Quidditch, do 2 damage to your opponent, then draw 2 cards. Pretty cut and dry. I like that it's pretty cheap, only costing 4, and you do 2 damage to your opponent and get to draw 2. So, it's kind of one of those, like we said, like if you need to draw cards, it's a pretty good one.
Could come in handy. Yeah.
And then we have the spell Research, which costs 5 Transfiguration. And when you play, you discard a lesson from play, which is kind of a lot. But you search your deck, and you can put up to 2 lessons from your deck into play. So you're trading 2 cards for 2 cards, right? You're losing some actions in the way because of the way cards work. But you are diversifying your lesson pool. So this might be potentially useful in decks that maybe run, need multiple colors, I guess, and don't have a professor as their starting character.
Right.
Have some access to get those lessons back from the graveyard. But I haven't used this card as I avoid too many colors in my decks. Yeah.
That makes sense. I could see it coming in handy too if you just did one of those recent healing ones where you put the 4 on the bottom of your deck in any order. At least this will force you to shuffle your deck too and get some lessons moved around. So it could be handy, but yeah, I don't think I play it too often myself either.
Right.
That leads us to our next spell, which is Rope Bind. Costs 3 charms power. Do 2 damage to your opponent or to a creature of choice, then draw a card. So very straightforward. Seems too low stakes for me. I'd need to do more damage than 2.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those. It's like if you are okay with drawing cards up front, right? So like because of how inexpensive it is, you might want to do it towards the front half of the game, I guess, or like right starting, because now you have more cards that increase your playability, so you can do the damage, but you're really just playing this card so that you can draw, which is essentially maybe an extra action, if you will, if you're one of those that draws cards for your extra action. So
Totally. And the artwork, that poor dog. I just want to help him.
yeah. Yep. Okay, so next one. We've got Searching for the Snitch, which is a really, really good card. It costs 2. Search your deck. You may take a Quidditch lesson or a card that needs Quidditch power from your deck, show it to your opponent, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So this is one of those, because of how inexpensive it is, you can play it right at the beginning of the game.
Yep.
Hopefully. And you can say, okay, well, either I'm going to take a match, right? Or I'm going to take a lesson. And so again, sort of cut and dry, really good card. I have 4 of them.
So flexible that any card that needs Quidditch power, if let's say you aren't playing as Madam Hooch or don't have her in play, you could just go get a broom. You could get anything. I usually use this to get Slytherin match, because that's something. It's like I don't have too many healing opportunities, so very nice.
Exactly.
Or you could catch the Snitch if you already have that.
I was gonna say So I sometimes will play this just to get catch the Snitch, even if I don't have enough lessons, because I'm just hoping that once I get the lessons, I'll be able to play catch a Snitch right away without waiting for that to come up.
Absolutely.
Yep.
This makes me so sad. This is such a good tutor effect, for Quidditch. I have to use 6 power with my Green Guts Vault key to get something from my deck.
Right.
So I'm just gonna pass over this card and I'm gonna ignore its existence. Just to go to a card that makes me more upset, because I love items. And then the next card is Smash. And it's like cost 2. It's a spell, because smashing things is a spell now too. I love Quidditch. And then choose one of your opponent's items and discard it. I don't want to say anything else. There's a Cauldron just breaking and it's just going everywhere. I don't want to listen if you play this card. I don't even want to know. I think we should just skip over and just
fair enough.
Let's go. Next.
All right. The next one is Stream of Flames. Probably, if we're doing our top 5 next episode, this will probably be in my top 5.
Definitely,
this is a fantastic card. Costs 5 charms power, and it's a spell that reads, do 3 damage to your opponent. You may also choose a creature in play and do 3 damage to it. So any card that says damage your opponent and a creature, sign me up. That is great.
Yeah, especially when it costs a decent amount, so it costs 5 to do 3 damage, and again, so really, really good card. I like it.
Totally.
And who doesn't want to shoot like purple flames? That's amazing.
That is a great artwork for sure.
The best point. Okay, so next one we have is a creature. It's a snail. It's called Streeler. Costs 4 magical creatures lessons. When you play this card, you may choose another creature in play, do 1 damage to it. So it's very similar to, I believe, Doxy, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so damage is 1, health is 2. I personally like Doxy. I've never had this in my deck. But I have seen snails that look just like this.
You have? Oh gosh, I was gonna say that art just rubs me the wrong way. I don't even like that card.
I know.
It's really ugly. I think that this like what Mona's opponent ends up like after she's done with her horrible decks. They're just like squirming.
Yep.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
Again, I have seen snails that look just like this.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure it was a snail?
Just in my opponents.
Are we talking about snails? I think we should just move on. It doesn't sound like a snail. So yes, we're gonna move to Swarm, and it's Britney in the MTV Music Awards, and it's a snake, and it's just you count the number of creatures you have to pay. Of course, this is a 5 converted mana cost. That's magic. A 5 power. Care for medical creatures card. You count your creatures and you do that amount of damage to your opponent.
Yeah, and that's yours and your opponent's creatures. So, gosh, that could
really
stack up
I don't even know how to read at this point.
No,
yes.
No, that's just a crazy aspect of this card. And I know a lot of like tournament play cards, they like to use low cost creatures like black bats, or let's say like an owl deck. Like you have all sorts of creatures in play. That to have Swarm in there, that could really screw up your opponent for sure.
So one of like the craziest combinations that I've played when I have creature decks is Swarm and Steel Claw together.
Ooh, yeah.
And so, that will be, I'll cover that in my
Top five.
my unforgivable
series.
curses.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so that combination is crazy. So I really do like this card because even if you have only this card, I mean, so you're playing against somebody who has a creature deck as well, and you can do, up to 10 damage just with this one card because you've got yours and your opponent. So it's really it's great. I like it.
Definitely. All right, and that leads us to the second to last one. We have Timeout. It's only costs 1 Quidditch power. It's a spell that reads, look at the top 6 cards of your deck and put them back on top in any order. If there are fewer than 6, look at all of them. This one's friggin' fantastic to use as your first action because then you set yourself up knowing what the next card is and you can draw that one right off the top. So it just gives you an idea of what's to come. But then again, if your opponent damages you, you lose all of those potentially. So yeah, it can be handy, but also can be useless too.
True story. That's good point. I got nothing else to say about that.
Yeah, and that leads us to our last card.
All right, let's go. So we've got Vanish. It is a spell. It costs 7. Transfiguration. Choose one of your opponent's creatures or characters in play other than his or her starting character and put it on the put it on the bottom of his or her deck.
Yes.
So yeah, another one that's pretty good, sort of cut and dry.
Yeah.
And of course, by doing that, you could reset either the creature if you've already done damage to it, or the character if they've already used the ability of the character, and then they can eventually shuffle it back into their deck. So it kind of depends. You might be doing them a favor, actually, but good card either way.
Definitely.
I think that whoever ordered this set, in terms of the cards and their order, just had a sense of humor because it's the last card.
Yeah.
It's like vanish.
And we're
you
out.
have your lesson.
Yes, exactly. Well, and that's the thing. It's number 75 out of 80. The other 5 are just lessons, which, as we've mentioned earlier, we have Care of Magical Creatures, Charms, Potions. They introduced Quidditch this time, obviously, and Transfiguration. So we did it again. That's another set in the books. I'm glad we got to discuss that. I guess we can wrap this episode up and do some plugs. Let's tell our listeners where they can find us on the internet. Let's start with Mona.
Okay, so you can follow my Instagram page at Harry Potter Morrissey. I put a lot of my collection, take pictures of my collection on there, and I post a lot of the episodes that I do for my YouTube channel, as well as some giveaways that I'm going to start doing. So for those of you listening, please make sure to follow my Instagram page at Harry Potter Morrissey and my YouTube channel called Into the Flu, where I go over all of the different merchandise, the vintage merchandise for Harry Potter, as well as do some box openings for the Harry Potter TCG, some booster pack openings, and then I go over different combinations of the cards in the new series, Unforgivable Curses. And as an example of one of the things which we talked about earlier, where you would find Devil's Snare is in this right here. For those that are watching the YouTube version, I'm just kind of putting just showing you guys what the game looks like. On the back of the PC, though, there is a bullet point that reads "Special Harry Potter Trading Card Game Foil Stamped Card Inside." So if that is not the bullet point on the back of this PC game, you will not find a Harry Potter TCG or the Devil's Snare that all of us want. So
yes, exactly. Very cool. Yeah, definitely go check that out. And how about you, Emilio? Let's hear about your YouTube channel.
Yes, so you can find me Nostalgia Collectible Investments on YouTube, and yeah, I have an Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the things. I have cards everywhere, all the dead CCG, including Harry Potter, Maple Story, Neopets, Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, Card Wars. I can teach you how to play. I can let you know how the markets are moving for all these cards, even Flesh and Blood, and also as of late, Metasu, which has me really excited because it's basically going over cryptids or all these creatures that we think exist, like aliens and whatever.
Yeah.
And they give them Pokemon art like the first generation of Pokemon.
Ooh.
And
So
the
cool.
game mixes mechanics of both Harry Potter, MTG and Yu-Gi-Oh! Yes, I think so. It's a big mix of mechanics, but I'm really excited about it, and it just came out like 2 weeks ago. So
Oh, really? Wow.
really cool time for people that are looking for new things. And in general, you can look at my videos for, as I said, gameplay, market updates, or just random shit in TikTok that I post.
Yeah, Emilio's got some great stuff for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And listeners, you can find me at twitch.tv/abtsilence. That's where I play Harry Potter trading card game with my wife on Wednesdays now. I've updated the time. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then if I'm not playing Harry Potter trading card game, I'm playing a variety of video games, mainly a lot of Fall Guys and stuff. So if that interests you, check that out. And ABT Silence stands for Almost Better Than Silence. It's a video game podcast I host with my friends. So definitely give that a listen if you like or want to listen to more podcasts. But I think that's going to do it for this week. We do have some really cool things in store for you guys. We have some interviews in the works and other cool events we're working on behind the scenes. So we'll keep you guys posted as that information becomes available. But I think if we're not doing an interview the next time around, we will most likely be covering Diagon Alley, the next set. So look forward to that. But I think that's it for this week. We can all say mischief managed.
Mischief managed. We're about to vanish like that last card.
Yeah, that fox.
Managed.
It's managed. Just the mischief continues. See you guys. Thanks for listening.